What's up guys, a ton of bacon here. Now in 2016 I made the easy New Year's resolution goal to build myself a PC. And the reason for that was because one, I wanted to make my resolution easy. And that year was the first time ever I built a PC with my buddy JC. My reasons also was that I wanted to play more games with my buddy Dom. Games like StarCraft, Heroes of the Storm, Overwatch, and anything else that was on PC at the time. After working at my dead-end retail job for so many months, doing a lot of research, and saving all the money I could, I was finally able to create the one PC I wanted to play video games with my friends. And during that time, I ended up finding out that I really enjoyed building things. I mean, over the years I enjoyed building Bionicles, Legos, and more recently, not only with PCs, but Gundam models as well, which I'm trying to rekindle that little hobby of mine. But let's focus on PCs. For me, I enjoy building PCs and I enjoy researching on how I can get as much performance as possible by saving as much money as possible at the same time. And I'm not going to get into the PCs versus consoles debate, not to flex, but I own a PC, I have a Nintendo Switch, Xbox One, and a PS4, and all the other handheld games that you could think of. The point I'm trying to make is building PCs is my passion. Now, I'm not an expert at it, but I do like to do extensive research and obviously keep up to date with what's new in the PC building industries and what's new with all the brands and what's the latest technologies that we could probably use to build any future rigs that can benefit us in the long run. Some of my favorite YouTube channels are all tech channels that I frequent every single day. Paul's Hardware, Bitwit, Linus Tech Tips, Jay's 2 Cents, Hardware Canucks, and Gamers Nexus are amazing tech channels that are really good at keeping me up to date with any future tech trends that I should keep an eye out for. So in 2016, I was really proud of the rig that I built. It was simple and it was the epitome of, it's not much, but it's mine. It was built with the Core i5 Intel processor that wasn't able to be overclocked because I didn't know how to do that yet. I also had a very modest GTX 1060 with it. But then as I got even more into doing things like video editing, I started to find out that my computer wasn't as strong as what I wanted it to be. During that time, I was editing on a MacBook Pro from I think 2015 or 2016 model, and that served me really well. It served me so well that it actually took part in making one of my most successful YouTube videos of all time, which was the Naruto Run video. But when I was editing other videos, like our fidget spinner video, I noticed that it was really hard for me to scrub through all the footage. So I ended up upgrading my PC that year to a Ryzen 1700X and pretty much keeping everything else the same. That made my editing experience so much better, and being able to tinker and learn the hard way on how to rebuild my PC, because a CPU switch to Intel to Ryzen was a big thing because you had to switch your motherboards too, which I learned, again, the hard way. And the importance of CPU temps. When I was rendering all my future videos, it was hard for my PC to stay cool, especially during the summer. I went as far as tearing open my NZXT case just to get some airflow in there. So why am I talking about this? Like I said, I love PC building, and today, September 13th, is the 2-year anniversary where The Verge released a PC building video on where Stefan built a $2,000 gaming PC incorrectly. My favorite video that I watch in order to keep me sane during these really troubled times is the Verge PC building video of all the other streamers and tech tubers watching it and critiquing it on the fly. And you know what? For the first time ever, I'm going to do my own reaction video of the Verge PC build in celebration of this 2-year occasion. Let's watch. Alright, so this is going to be my pretty much reaction, even though I've seen this a bunch of times. I'm going to see if I can point out other things that other YouTubers haven't pointed out yet. And again, there is one good aspect of this video that I do enjoy, and that's his summary on how to gauge what kind of parts to get. He does a really cool animation in here, but pretty much that's the only highlight of the entire video. So let's just get right into it.
So a few years ago, TC, or Managing Editor, built a gaming desktop, but it's kind of out of date and it's definitely not going to hold up for Battlefield 5. So let's build a new one. You can build a gaming desktop for around $1,000, but I want to go all out, so I spent around 2,000. PC like this
So
is going to be able to
2,000's
play
a
most games at
lot.
ultra settings. So what do you need to build a desktop?
So he mentions $2,000 PCs could play most games at ultra settings.
Ultra settings, 2,000. PC like this is going to be able to play most games at ultra settings.
So I want to stop right there, mainly because you're spending $2,000 on a PC to play most games. And the thing is, the $2,000 mark, in my opinion, is for games that, not games, but a $2,000 PC is on the tier of, not only am I gaming, I'm going to be rendering videos and editing, I'm going to be streaming, I'm going to have mass storage for all my footage, and I might be delving into the realm of rendering scientific data like in COVID Moonshot. I don't know. He says most games, but if you're spending $2,000, you should be able to play all games in the entire gaming library at ultra settings at that point.
So, what do you need to build a desktop? Well, of course, first you need a table. Preferably not metal. If it's going to be metal...
So one thing about this video is I think he tries to be funny in some cases, and the thing is, you know, an instructional video with comedy in it is, in my opinion, hard to pull off. So the comedy and bits that he puts in there and punchlines are a bit dry. So I guess that's probably what he was going for. Maybe that is his personality, whatever.
Metal have an anti-static working surface layered on top of it.
True.
A thermal paste applicator.
You don't need that.
An Allen wrench. Some tweezers to tighten up the wires.
So the Allen wrench, he never uses throughout the entire video. So here's a fun thing about those tweezers, aka zip ties. Where I work out, we call them Panduits because the company that makes those is called Panduit. So he still got it wrong, but that's just a useful piece of information for you guys.
Swiss Army knife, which hopefully has a Phillips head screwdriver in it.
You need a Phillips head
And
screwdriver.
last but not least, an anti-static bracelet, which is to protect you and the parts. These are the
True,
parts
but
you
he's
need.
not grounded here.
But more importantly,
he's not
before we
grounded.
get there, we need to understand what these parts are doing and how they interact with one another. To better understand
See,
the
this
parts
is
that
good.
make up
I
a
like
desktop,
this.
Let's try to understand them individually.
This is really
The
smart.
processor is like the computer's brain.
This is the
a piece of
budget.
calculations that control everything the computer does.
Yes,
the
true.
motherboard is like the foundation, serving as a main structure for all other parts to be added to. It also allows
Correct.
the other parts to communicate with one another, which also makes it kind of like a nervous system. Graphics cards are
I
responsible
agree.
for rendering and processing visuals into what you see on screen. Our PC's power supply is of course channeling electricity, in that it adjusts and provides the right amount of energy to keep it running.
True.
Last but not least, RAM, or random access memory,
He got that right.
and your hard drive are good examples of short-term and long-term memory,
True.
respectively. If you want to better understand what kind of computer to build, then first figure out what you want to use it for. A gamer might care more about a graphics card than, say, a video editor, who might want extra RAM to assist with editing large files.
So right now he's correct. He's correct about all this, and that's why there was some confidence in the beginning of like, can he really build this PC, even though he named off his tools incorrectly. Because what he's explaining here is how building your own PC is very situational, and that's one thing I'm all for, because you're not going to build a PC exactly like someone else's when you two have two different interests. You know, it's going to be a different build if I'm a gamer, strictly gamer, and someone else is an editor. So all of this is very true. Then again, I would argue he puts video like video editing and like camera stuff here and says that you need more RAM and CPU and graphics are pretty much the same. I feel like this should have been a little more detailed, but because in order for you to edit, you need strong CPU power and strong graphics, a good graphics card, and a lot of RAM and a lot of storage, which is what he's missing as well. And one thing he doesn't go over is cooling. In order for your PC to run really well, you need effective cooling. So you need maybe more case fans. Maybe you have to get an all-in-one liquid cooler. Maybe you need to get a CPU that, if it does have a lot of wattage that it takes in, or it has a lot of power, you need something to cool it equally other than the stock heatsink that it comes with. So I wish he could have went into that more, but who am I kidding? This is a horrible build.
And if you need help choosing the right parts for your build,
Yes.
there's sites like PCPartPicker.com that help show presets for which parts fit together, which sort of part conflicts you might have, and where to find deals on new parts.
See, that
We have
entire
a lot of
thing,
boxes and a lot of PC parts.
that entire thing was
Boxes,
so
isolated parts
intuitive,
that you need, but
And so part of me was thinking, why couldn't he build this PC if he knew about what each part does?
By adding the motherboard in. Some notes about
He's
installing
starting with the
motherboards
motherboard.
delicate. You should be
He's
really
starting with the
careful.
motherboard. You fool.
And screw in with confidence, but also don't screw in too hard, otherwise you could crack the board. I chose
Okay, in order for you to screw so hard to crack the board, like you got to be putting so much force in. I mean, my standards for screwing in anything is the German standard, which is a Guten tight. But in reality, it's just hand tight quarter turn is what I do for my screwing thing. So
Asus
cracking the board,
Z370
it's like,
motherboard for
really?
two main reasons. One, it has built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and also it has support for NVMe SSDs, meaning you can get really fast SSDs that are really easy to install. Pay close attention to the brace that goes at the back.
That's
of
an
the
I/O
board. You always
plate.
have to make sure that you really hammer it in.
You
because
don't
there's
hammer
no
it in.
screw. It really just has to go outside of the case and clasp onto the frame.
Go outside of the case and clasp. What? I mean, it becomes a part of the case because you clip it in there. He says we're claspable on this
And
video.
This is very important because otherwise you can't align the motherboard correctly with the holes. We're just
Sure.
gonna start installing all 8 screws.
So he says that there's 8 screws, but he doesn't talk about this here. The screws going in, he doesn't talk about the posts. And depending on what size motherboard you have, you might have different locations for posts. So if you have a huge motherboard, you may need to move the posts in different locations.
So next we're going to install the RAM on the motherboard. I chose Corsair's 16GB Vengeance LED RAM for 2 main reasons.
Sure.
One, it has LEDs and we do like lights in our gaming desktops. Second,
He doesn't even say the term that we PC builders like to say. He says we do like lights in our gaming desktops. You mean RGB? Like RGB is a universal term for anything tech related in the PC building world. Heck, like he says lights, we like lights, as if we're toddlers. It's RGB that comes out of all the parts that light up on there. So
really, it's pretty fast RAM. It's 2666 megahertz.
No,
I
that's
believe,
not
so
fast.
it's pretty fast, and
No, it's
this
not.
motherboard supports that speed, which is most important.
I'm pretty sure any motherboard could support that speed. Jesus.
The slots first, and just aligning the stick with the middle of the strip,
Yeah, he's off.
not with the end, and just lining that up with the logo. So once you hear that
Lining up with the logo. It doesn't matter where the logo's at. There are a lot of logos that go on a lot of these parts, and sometimes the logos are offset, but if your building is optimal for airflow and the orientation of where you put your parts, it doesn't matter where the logo is.
solid clasp, and you don't see the gold connectors on the side anymore, that's when you know the RAM is in. Step 3, we're going to install the hard drive.
Yep, look right there. Side by side, he's got 8 gigs, a whopping 8 gigs of 2666.
In this case, the NVMe SSD. I chose this format of solid state drive so that I could input it into the motherboard without having to worry about extra wires or putting it in a separate part of the case and just getting really messy.
So, okay, he's right about that. Putting M.2 does take away the amount of wires. The only thing I didn't like that he didn't mention was the actual benefit of an NVMe SSD, which is if you put your operating system on an NVMe SSD, it's so fast when it comes to booting up your PC, and SSDs are way quicker at grabbing stored data. It is lightning fast, you know, because when you do spinning disk hard drives, it takes a little longer for either to boot or a little longer to get to your data. That's like one of the main reasons why I suggest SSDs for just a small upgrade from most PCs. And he doesn't mention that at all. He just talks about the convenience it makes for him when building and less wires. And that's it. And it's like that's like the last benefit people think about when it comes to SSDs.
This is from Kingston, and it's 480 gigabytes, so it's not
480 gigs? Yo, okay. He spent $2,000 on this PC. He only has. I gotta add everything up later on. Goodness gracious. How do you spend $2,000 and only have a 480 gig SSD?
But you can always upgrade this and swap it out, and it's only held down by one screw and the latch, so it's really simple.
He's missing the post screw on here.
And really straightforward. Speed for gaming is important when it comes to a hard drive. You want files to write quickly, and you want games to load quickly.
Okay,
so that's why it's best if you use an SSD.
Okay, he mentions it right there.
Okay,
I'm
so
sorry.
step 4, we're going to install the graphics card. I chose PNY's GTX 1080, which is overclocked, and so it's a pretty easy install.
So a PNY 1080, not a 1080 Ti. We're still at the $2,000 mark, and he says it's overclocked. Okay, so here's where my knowledge. Can GPUs come overclocked for you?
So that's why it's best if you. I chose PNY's GTX 1080, which is overclocked.
He doesn't even say overclocked. He says it's overclock. Like it's like a graphics card doesn't come overclocked for you. If it's brand new, it comes out stock, and you have to do all the overclocking yourself. He just says things for the sake of saying things.
And so it's a pretty easy installation.
Oh gosh, one thing that also bothers me about this build as well is that he doesn't mention the importance of cooling, but he has a case fan right here, and he doesn't mention anything about it at all. He doesn't talk about the importance of positive air pressure with intake versus exhaust kind of deal. So that's just another thing.
Click down.
See, he says click, not
Take
clasp.
the remaining brackets and just put them in the spots that you haven't used.
Okay, that's right. He
You don't have
did
to
that
screw
right.
these in. They get bolted down by the back.
You are screwing it in. He says you don't have to screw them in, but they get bolted down. You were literally doing the screwing motion. They do get screwed in. Are you saying they don't get torqued
and
down?
GPU's installed. Power supply
Jesus.
time. And make sure that you align it with these little insulating pads so that the power supply doesn't short circuit and come into contact with the rest of the system.
So those aren't insulating pads. Those are anti-vibration pads because if anything vibrates, we won't be able to hear it. You can't short circuit the PSU when it comes in contact with the case.
So just take it in, slide
The fan's the wrong way.
it
He's
in
choking
nice and
it.
easy until you have a snug fit, and then shift it to the back and make sure it's right up against the frame.
So see right there, he says in his first explanation, it doesn't come in contact with the case, so it doesn't short circuit, and yet he advises you to get the brick and push it against the frame so it is making contact with the case. So if he were to really stick by what he was saying, his power supply is now touching the case, which means now he's in danger of short circuiting it.
Now you just put in the screws and you tighten and screw in.
He
So
didn't
next step, we're going to
he didn't put the cables in first, is what I would have done, but
install the CPU cooler. In this case, it's going to go on the top end of the case,
he hasn't put his CPU in. But yeah, he's putting the CPU cooler.
and we're just going to have the hose.
And just the way he moves, you could clearly tell he doesn't know what he's doing. Clearly, he doesn't have that confidence. You know, he's just like, yeah, maybe, yeah. I'm gonna put this here. Yeah, we're gonna do it here.
Hang out for a little while until we install the processor, which is going to come a little later.
No,
Always be sure to try
you can see the table. There are no fans.
to place it in the system first before you install it, because you can see it takes up a lot of space. But in this case, no pun intended, it fits in
It's so funny.
perfectly, and we're going to start screwing it in. And so there's nothing special about this screwing in process. They're just really long screws because they go through the entire frame of the cooler, and they take forever.
You're gonna puncture AIO,
So
man.
next up, cables. It's complete.
Oh,
The next few
gosh.
additions will be for the GPU, for any specific
correct.
port that the case has, for any lighting that the case has, the CPU cooler, anything else really.
See, he's like fumbling his words, and that's when you're hooking up the power supply. You're hooking up to the motherboard, to the GPU. There's a separate slot for the CPU, and that's it. He could talk about that more when he does his cable management, which he doesn't do properly.
Installing the CPU, the heart of the computer or the brain, depending on how you look at it.
He's installing that so freaking late, and then he got his AIO hanging out here.
So to do this, we're just going to remove the plastic covering that they put on the motherboard.
You're not supposed to remove it because with Intel, when you put the CPU in and you pull the latch down, that this plastic part that he throws over his shoulder pops out for you.
We're just going to take this little plastic part out. Just toss that out of here.
No, don't do that. That's not
And
good.
Now we have an exposed CPU holder.
So when he's talking about how this is an exposed CPU holder, one of the things that he needs to emphasize is the fact that right here is where you should be most careful of any debris getting in there, so dust and stuff like that, because that can, especially with Intel processors and Intel based LG sockets on motherboards, this little thing right here is the part you should be the most careful about in your entire system, because if any debris gets in there or these pins get damaged, that's not gonna read your CPU at all, and you're gonna have problems with it. I also like to point out that I'm pretty sure he's using this manual. I'm pretty sure all this is on the fly. He's reading the manual page by page on how to hook up this entire system.
CPU holder, or rather slot, on the motherboard.
It's the socket.
Use the CPU applicator.
Oh god.
This is a special little part that not everyone may get, but
I want to point this out here. What is he doing here? That's a thermal paste applicator he's holding. And if he's holding the CPU, what is he doing to the CPU at this very moment? I was cringy because I was thinking, are you fixing pins? Because the pins for an LGA socket, Intel based CPU and motherboard, the pins are right there, what he just pointed in the motherboard. But here, like, what is he doing here? You're like touching the little CPU contact points and you're gonna ruin it, man. Like, what are you doing?
That we got from ASUS definitely does have. It's called a CPU installation tool.
You'll need that.
It makes it really useful if you want to install a Core i7 hexa-core CPU. Yeah, we've got one, and it's an 8th generation chip, and it's ready to go, and it supports overclocking. So what happens?
It's ready to go, and it supports overclocking. He never overclocks his system.
So we're about to apply thermal paste to the CPU.
You don't need to. Look right there. It's already pre-applied for you.
Every CPU cooler actually comes with a bit of thermal paste already neatly applied in a circle around it.
Then stop there.
It's usually not enough. It's good.
Usually not enough.
Actually, PC building practice to have a little bit extra and layer it on top.
Oh, that's so much. That's a lot.
The final portion is to add the CPU cooler to the top end of the processor.
You mean install it on there?
Oh
my god, that's a lot. That is a lot. Jeez, man. Now, Gamers Nexus does a really good video on the amount of thermal compound that can affect your CPU temps, and they actually do test this at one point. I highly recommend that video. Check it out. But geez, man, like, you don't need all of that, man.
Brackets, or rather like screws in here with brackets and holders right here. And they're going to keep the cooler raised off the processor, but it's also going to be close enough to actually physically come in contact with it. Like, basically keep it cool.
Basically keep it cool. He says the CPU is not going to be making contact with the processor. So pretty much he puts so much CPU thermal paste, right? Puts so much thermal paste that the cooler's right here, CPU's right here, and there's going to be an inch of thermal compound that's going to have them make contact so then they can keep everything cool. And that's the way he explained it. Made no sense at all.
Thumb screws like this and just screw them on. So now that our internals are done, we're gonna...
Internals are not done. How am I supposed to... you didn't tell me how to hook up all the other pins. You didn't tell me how to cable manage. There's nothing.
Panels back on, which is the top glass, side glass, front glass, and of course the back panel where...
He says top glass, side glass, and yet he doesn't talk about how you need to put the dust filter.
Now that our internals are done, we're going to put all the panels back on, which is the top glass, side glass, front glass, and of course...
See right there, that wasn't glass. That was a dust filter for his fans, for his AIO, and he doesn't explain what that was right there. He just talks about top glass, side glass, and the thing is, not every PC case has as much tempered glass as yours, man. He doesn't tell you the name of this case right here. That's why I'm still confused. How did he reach the $2,000 mark with little parts he has?
Of course, the back panel where all of this fun stuff is happening.
Fun stuff.
So we fully built the PC.
Horrible. What is that? What is that? What is that? The thing that drives me nuts about this, someone looked at this, and I'll talk about more at the end. Someone looked at this case, this complete product, and went perfect. Maybe it was him, but I want to know what the cameraman was doing, the director, everything.
Everything's put together, and we got to the post screen.
Yeah, right.
So what's next?
He's lying.
Well, you need a USB flash drive with your Windows installation media on it.
Cool.
And of course, a license key. So
a license what? Cape?
License key. So
license key. Sorry, license key. What he means is a Windows license key, and he doesn't tell you how much that is or where you could pirate that.
That up, installed Windows in a couple of minutes, installed a bunch of drivers, and now
I hate how he did that. A bunch of drivers. He doesn't explain what drivers are. Because here's the thing. Whenever you install a new GPU like this one here, NVIDIA, you have to go into the NVIDIA website or the GeForce website, and you have to install what they call is a driver, which is a program for your system that allows you to really utilize your graphics card to its full potential. And that's more or less the only description I could give it. But he just says a bunch of drivers, and he mentions how he has a 1080 in his computer, and he doesn't tell you where to get those. He just says a bunch of drivers.
now we have a fully functioning gaming PC ready to run some games. Right now I've got Armor 3 running at maximum settings, native resolution, which is 1080p HD.
You know, we don't even know what kind of monitor he's using at the same time.
And it's running pretty smoothly. Like,
sure.
I'm averaging 70 and 80 FPS, and it's only like a very intensive game to run. And it's still doing a pretty good job. So right now I'm playing League of Legends. It's one of my favorite games. I'm actually playing against a bot, and I'm distracted, so I'm not actually doing so well. But otherwise, like, this is pretty much what you would see me do on a gaming computer. Test stuff out.
Play games? Here's what you see me do on a gaming computer. Yeah, you play games. That's what you do on it. So here's the funny thing about this. If you look at the top left there, 120 frames. The last game he played, 70 to 80 frames. Imagine spending $2,000 on a PC and getting subpar results like this. I'd be furious. Like, I don't get how he's okay with all this, and he's acting like he's okay, but I'm pretty sure in his head he's like, oh, everything's not going according to plan.
Have really high frame rates like I am right now.
Hopefully have really high frame rates. You're stuck at 120, and like League of Legends is, you could run on anything. You could run on mobile if I wanted to.
I'm averaging 120 FPS, and that's only because I've actually locked the game.
Why?
Frame rate, because I can get around 300 FPS playing League on maximum settings, which is a little bit absurd, and you don't really need that.
Like, he's so focused on the game. It's
building
like,
a gaming desktop has been a great experience. I'm able to max out a lot of my favorite titles, and I'll be able to play a lot of upcoming titles like Battlefield 5 and Cyberpunk 2077 without worrying too much about the parts I have. When ray tracing GPUs come out, for example, I'll be able to...
He keeps talking about ray tracing GPUs, and the thing is with ray tracing, that is only included with the RTX series. And so maybe he should do a follow-up video and build a PC centered around the RTX series, but which he never does. But he just keeps talking about ray tracing. It's just why is this a PC building tutorial and you're already talking about future technologies that you're going to put into your PC? You're distracting the viewer about what's more important is properly building the PC, not about upgrades. A separate tutorial would be how to properly upgrade your PC to whatever part you want, especially parts that he keeps talking about, ray tracing.
The upgrade without having to buy a completely new system. And if I have a problem down the line, I can always just swap out a part and have it serviced rather than losing my whole computer. And of course now we also have a computer to test and benchmark games here at the Verge.
Terrible. Capital One. Terrible. That sucks, man. So here's the last thing I want to point out for this video.
Thanks for watching. Let me know if you've built a computer.
So, as much as we would like to make fun of Stefan, I want to know these three people here, because someone had to have watched this video at The Verge. And the thing is, I never heard of The Verge until this video came out. So I didn't know that they were a tech company. Not tech company. I didn't know that they were a website that focuses on like technology and does computer reviews and like sneak peeks and mobile stuff. I didn't know anything about The Verge. I want to know who these people are, because someone had to have watched this video and said, hey, that's a little off, maybe we should try this again. Or hey, Stefan, you did something wrong here. Like, did any of these other people here
yourself, or how you would spend $2,000 on your own build?
See, right here, yeah, like the producer, okay, network general manager, all that stuff. Yeah, like,
I'm really interested in seeing what sort of parts you guys would get. And
oh wait, right here. Motion graphics, so that was probably that little graphic they had at the beginning. Audio, they don't talk about who the editor is, but the thing is, all these other people that were a part of this video had to have watched it at one point and said this is incorrect. Did they just render the video and not watch it, because whenever I make a video, I watch it, sleep on it, watch it, sleep on it, watch it again, and make any final edits. And the fact that no one in their entire staff watched this video and it got through, this should have never seen the light of day if this was as incorrect as it is.
Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to The Verge.
Nope. No, absolutely not. Now at this time, the gentleman Stefan in this video that was building the PC does not work for The Verge anymore. On his Twitter page, it says that he's a former tech journalist or whatever it says there. I don't know. He blocked me. I wonder why. But he still gets a lot of flame for what he did on that day. A lot of people would assume that the PC building community is toxic for always getting on his case and making all these memes about him. Then again, whatever fanbase you're a part of, there is going to be a bit of toxicity there. But here's what I have to say about it. It's not the fact that we're making fun of him that he made a mistake building a PC, is that he dug his heels in and doubled down on his decisions. During one Twitch stream, when someone was asking him how he was doing, he admitted saying that the PC that he built had some mistakes on it, but he fired back at all of us saying that we were just a bunch of nerds who were just stating our opinions, and he ended it all by saying, hey, it still works. How long that PC worked for, we may never know. Overall, I could just suggest to all of you, take a chance at building a PC and check out all the expert YouTube channels that are on here. And of course, and most importantly, don't do whatever they did in the Verge PC building video. And as weird as it is, you can learn a lot from that video, especially from all those who were reviewing that video at the time. Use your PC rig to start folding at home to fight COVID-19. Research the COVID Moonshot project. That's what I've been using for my PC, because I want to do everything I can within my power to fight this dreaded disease. So hopefully you guys are staying safe out there. Do everything you can to stay with your family, build a PC, and do whatever makes you guys happy. Be safe out there and stay gold.